Hi, everybody. Let's take a look at where did all the houses go? All right. So Chris LaRue here with Florida Life Home Team and EXP Realty. Um, so if you've been tracking the market at all, you know right now it's a seller's market and it's a good time to sell if you got a place to go. If you're a buyer, it's a little tough because the inventory is so low. So I just want to go through 10 items here that, in my opinion or in my estimation, are kind of some of the big factors in the last year or two of why we have such a low inventory. Um, so the first one we'll talk about is low interest rates. We're seeing an uptick now. Rates are at or a little bit above 5%. Where they were at the low threes back in the fall and last summer. But let's not forget that back in 2018, 2019, they were in the mid fours. So we're still historically, low interest rates and certainly below the inflation rate of, almost 8%. So, um, well, it's going to impact your purchasing power. It's not going to be as significant as it would have been 15 years ago, or even back when our parents and everything were first buying their first homes, and they were seeing anything under a double digit number. They were like, man, this is awesome, right? So low interest rates. So that's reason number one. Reason number two, remote work. All right. So right now it's becoming a norm, right? So we got COVID pushed everybody out of the office and into a remote role. But the companies, they've actually found out that people are more productive at home. They've got some studies out there from Stanford, and their estimate was 22% more productive from working from home. And then we got the Pew Research. So they looked at all the jobs that could telecommute or had the ability to be home or away from the office. Prior to the pandemic, 2019 numbers, it was like 36% of the people that were in those jobs worked from home, whether it was voluntary or not, but 36%. Now it's at 59%. So we got a 23% more people working at home. Um, Number three, cross state moving. So the population in Florida, in the last 2 years, it's up by a little over 500,000. Tampa and St. Pete are two of the five fastest growing cities in Florida right now. And we've seen 20% of those new people moving into the area. So about 100,000 increase in people just into the Tampa St. Pete area. Obviously with all that, they got to live somewhere. So there's increased competition to get into the available homes to buy and rent. Um, Number four, lack of new construction. So permits here in the Bay Area right now, they're up about 24%, which is good. Tampa was actually named the top city for new construction. Um, but with all these people moving in, obviously, the numbers have to fluctuate and have to keep up with the growing demand for homes. Um, we also see an uptick in prices, right? So they do it in July, so they come out every July and they'll give you the price per square foot. So as we look at last year, $209 a square foot, compared with 2020 at $168, and then July of 19, $150 per square foot. Um, I don't have a crystal ball, but if I were to bet on it, my guess would be this year in July it's going to be higher than it was last year. We're going to see it maybe 230, 235. I mean, I don't know. But certainly a big jump from that $150 back in 2019. Number five, COVID, right? Again, pushing everybody out into the remote workforce. People were self-isolating. They didn't want people trampling through their homes, so they kind of pulled back. And one of the advantages of increasing home prices, if you're a homeowner, is you can refinance your loan and draw that money back out. So a lot of home renovations, people were fixing up their place instead of moving on and buying the next house. So that incentivized them to, basically stay put. And by doing that, it impacts the inventory. And then we also had the forbearance, which we'll talk about a little bit later here in the video. But some people lack of income, loss of income, whatever, they had to do the forbearance. Number 6, the Airbnb and investment properties. So Florida is a hot spot for vacations. We all know that. But it's also increasing right along with house prices, rent prices, everything else that's going up. They're able to get a lot more money for that rental property. So as people are flocking to the Sunshine State, to get out of the Northeast, the Midwest, all those states that were locked down, they're trying to get their family out on vacation. And there's been a big interest in people buying those investment properties. So not only that, but they can use it for themselves. They come down here for a week or two and then turn around, and the rest of the year they can rent it out, and it's a cash flow income producing property. 7 is the investors. So a lot of Wall Street money coming into the area. So we got nationally, it's about 18% is where they're buying at. They got about 18% of the market. Here in the Bay Area, it's up to 25%. The good, the bad, the ugly, I don't know what long term that means, but it certainly has pushed out a lot of the local buyers, because these BlackRock, Blackstone, they're pulling money right out of the Fed window, paying next to nothing on their interest rate, so they can come in here, outbid the local guy or gal, and then as soon as they turn around and they've got a renter in there, it's cash producing, cash flow property, and they just sit there and wait for the property to appreciate, and they can either continue to rent it, or they can sell it the year or two down the road and still make some money off of it. That's one of the things that's had an impact as well. So here it is, the mortgage forbearance relief. If you look at the courts, like just recently, you're starting to see some of these foreclosures and everything else starting to work their way through. Everything's been backed up because of the pandemic. And for people that lost their jobs or had a reduction in income, what have you, they get through this forbearance period, which, here in Florida, I think ended, last fall. I think everybody could stay until about last fall. So they essentially had a year and a half or so where they didn't have to pay a mortgage. And if you don't have to pay a mortgage, and you can't afford it, but you can live there for free. Some people just didn't have the incentive to sell the house and then, move on to the next place. They kind of waited it out, and, they're in this situation where they weren't going to sell the house. And obviously that increases or decreases the available homes that are, out there in the market for us to buy. Number 9, we've got, where am I going to go? Right. So, if you're a seller, we know right now the market's high and you can get a lot more money for the house than you could have a couple years ago. But there's also a lot of competition out there. So where do you go? Well, it's not all doom and gloom, right? So we got some options. Ribbon and Knock, they're 2 mortgage companies that, they'll basically lend you the money, the 20% down, to go buy your next house, so you don't have a contingency where you have to sell the old one before you buy the new one. And what they're doing is they're giving you 6 months. So you take the money, you do your mortgage through them, and go find the next house, 20% down, no contingency. Then they give you 6 months to sell your old house. And in talking with them, kind of vetting the program, but in talking with them, I'm like, well, 6 months. They're like, yeah, right now we haven't had anybody that needed to use it, but we do give up the 6 months before we purchase the house back from the old homeowner. So you get a guaranteed purchase on the backside, but obviously we want to get it out there at market price so you get the most bang for your buck. But there are programs out there that will work with you, and there's solutions that, depending on your situation, we just got to figure out what the best one is for you, and we'll get it done. And then number 10, so frustrated buyers, right? So if you look at the list pricing of homes and where they're selling at, right now it's at or above 100%. And that includes, the house that goes on the market and, might be a little overpriced because they're riding the coattails, but it needs so much work that, nobody's going to pay full price for it. So it sells at 85, 90% of list price. Well, the housing has been high enough to where it's pulling all those up to where the average is 100% and higher in some areas. You get to some neighborhoods and it's higher, but just on average here in the Bay Area, you're looking at 100% of list price. Still got multiple offers. There's a lot of people coming in with cash, all cash, outbidding, local buyers, people that are willing to waive appraisal, and basically, the house appraises for 500, and the sale price was 525, and they're just slapping the extra 25,000 down, and walking away with a smile on their face because they know in a year or two that house, if things continue the way it is, it's going to be worth 10, 20% more. Who knows? It may level out, may kind of soften a little bit, but on average, real estate's going to appreciate over time. So you've got options, and we're here to help you out any way I can. Even if it's just information, the conversation, just to see where you're at and try to figure out where you want to go. But reach out. Let's have a conversation. Let's discuss your options, and take care. Have a great day.